Hello, Charlie TCG here, and welcome to the ultimate guide for Chien-Pao for post-rotation. As you know, I am a huge fan of his archetype, pretty much been playing it non-stop since release, and I've been testing a ton in the post-rotation format. So I want to give you the absolute mastering how you should be playing Chien-Pao going into rotation in just a few weeks' time. So in today's video, I'm going to tell you exactly why and how you should play the deck. It's how does it become so much stronger in the post-rotation metagame. Also talking to you about my current list, as well as also some inclusions, some ones you could include. Some of the texts that just didn't quite make the cut. Talking to you about the ideal board state, how you should really focus on Chien-Pao, whether you go first or second, definitely some do's and don'ts with that. There's also some in-depth matchup guide, where there are a ton of new archetypes as well, so there's also some current ones as well. I'm going to tell you exactly how you should be playing Chien-Pao into likes of Charizard, to likes of Great Tusk, the Vulpix deck, all the way to the likes of Gholdengo. So I hope this gives you as much preparedness as possible to Chien-Pao. I love this deck and it's incredibly strong. So a lot of people do know how to play Chien-Pao, but we can see these are the big 7 cards of the archetype. Chien-Pao has 2 amazing things going for it. The ability Shivery Chill, which you search your deck for 2 water cards if it's in the active water energies, if it's in the active spot, and then pop them into your hand. And then you can dish out a huge amount of damage from Hail Blade, 70 times the amount of water energies you discard from all your Pokemon in play. Now you might go, this seems really costly. If you discard 4 energies, you're only doing 240 damage. If you discard 6, you're doing that magic 360. Well, that's when Baxcalibur comes in with that super cold ability. As often as you like, you may attach as many basic water energies from your hand to your Pokemon in play. Okay, we've got some energy acceleration with the likes of Shivery Chill, we've got Super Cold to chuck all of it on your board to try and keep it going. But also we have the likes of Superior Energy Retrieval to get those energies from the discard pile again. And how can we get this out? Well, we have the likes of Miraidon, one of the best water supporters we've ever seen. Search your deck for water Pokemon and an item card, reveal them, and put them into your deck. This is a really big synergy because Miraidon turn 2 can get you the likes of Baxcalibur plus Rare Candy, and also you can start attacking with the likes of Chien-Pao. We do have other attackers as well in the deck, Radiant Greninja and Iron Hands. Iron Hands, thank you very much, has been a threat ever since it's been released, gaining an additional prize card from any Pokemon it knocks out from this attack. Well, you're never really going to be using more damage modifiers, but 120, that's a big one-hit KO on some Pokemon, which can get 3 prizes from the likes of Sprockability, Lumineon, and Lugia V. So there's also 2 prizes from the likes of Radiant Greninja and Frigibax and Bibarel. So it's a very, very good way now, and really forcing some single prize Pokemon to all of a sudden be 2 prizes. And also Radiant Greninja has an incredible draw factor where you get to discard a water energy and then get to draw 2 cards. And then we have Moonlight Shuriken, that you discard 2 cards from this Pokemon and the attacks do 90 damage to 2 of the opponent's Pokemon. This works really well for the likes of Canteen Cologne on a mana fee, so all of a sudden now you can get 2 prizes of Pokemon which might not even be which were protected just moments ago. And Bibarel really helps you with that draw factor. The Injustice Insiders get to draw into your 5 cards. This can be really good, especially to help you against being Iono-proofed. So these are kind of like the big sort of strategies of a deck, using Baxcalibur to flood the board of energies and using one of your 3 many attacking options in the game. But what exactly are some of the new cards really help push Chien-Pao over the edge? Well, the big one is Prime Catcher. This is an incredible good new item card, an ace spec. You only have one of these in your deck. And what does this do? Well, you get to switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon with their active as well. And if you do, switch one of your active Pokemon with one of your bench Pokemon as well. So this is an amazing gusting card. This is exactly what Chien-Pao needed. As we know, currently we have the likes of Cross Switcher, but this all of a sudden you have to play 4 Cross Switchers to only get out twice in the game because you've got to play 2 of them at the same time. Whereas Prime Catcher, that absolutely nullifies that completely. You all of a sudden, those 4 spots become one of just Prime Catcher. Yes, it's only one gusting effect, but that's incredibly good and it's much more easier to find. You can area to find this one. It can come from Pokestop, so it's really, really good. And it can really help your Radiant Greninja and Iron Hands become a lot stronger. Gusting effect for an Iron Hands, all of a sudden you can like get rid of the Lumineon, which is on Charizard bench. All of a sudden takes 3 prize cards that way. Or Prime Catcher the mana fee, chuck on a Canteen Clone, and all of a sudden you're doing that additional more damage you need to do, getting those KOs on that 2 Charmanders, Frigibax, Rolts, Gimmigholes, so many other options as well. It's an incredibly powerful brand new art card. We also play Buddy Buddy Poppin'. This is like the new replacement of Battle VIP Pass. What does it do? Well, you search your deck for 2 basic Pokemon with 70 HP or less and put them onto your bench, shuffle your deck afterwards. This is really good because it gets you your Friggies and your Bidoof. But unlike Battle VIP Pass, You can't play it afterwards after turn 1, but Buddy Buddy Puffin does not have any limitation like that. You can work in the mid to late game. So if, say for example, you need to get another Frigibax because they just knocked out one, you've got a Excalibur on the bench, well you can just play Buddy Buddy Puffin and get one exactly straight onto the bench. Let's also get the Mana Fees if you need to have it into turn 2, if you also need to see a threat of a Greninja. It's incredibly powerful, as well as also really good discard fodder in the late game. Unlike with Iron, the Battlefield P-Pass, where all of a sudden as soon as you draw into it, you can't do anything. You can burn this card straight away by playing it. You can instantly discard it from the likes of using likes with Ultra Ball, as well as also Superior Energy Retrieval. It's just an incredibly good card. And we also gained one other really good card, Cypher Maniac's Deciphering, or what's it called? Cypher Maniac. Yeah, Cypher Maniac's Deciphering. A very, very powerful new card. Like the code breaking, it works really well with Greninja, Bibarel, and Pokestop. What does it do? Search your deck for 2 cards, shuffle your deck, and then put those 2 cards on top of your deck in any order. This is like some Oracle, if you remember way back in the early sort of era, on the E-Series era. It was also Mallow in the Sun and Moon era. This is really good because you can get any 2 cards you might need to have. You can get your Excalibur and Red Candy. You can get some item cards you might need to acquire for discarding effects. This can work with Pokestop. Works with Greninja to draw it straight into them after you discard an energy. Bibarel should draw straight into them. You can get any of the cards you might need to have. It also helps Iono-proof your deck. What do I mean by that? Well, this deck very struggles with Iono. If you get Ionoed and you don't have Bibarel set up, you can't really draw into anything afterwards. So having this Code Breaker really helps you into that sort of option. You can draw into those 2 cards you might potentially need to do, so you can carry on the game and you can constantly keep that pressure. That's one of the things that really struggles with Chien-Pao, and it's definitely this Code Breaker the Cypher is such a good inclusion. So exactly how you should be playing it turn 1 to turn 4. This is kind of like good sort of ideal exactly what you should be going into this one. But turn 1 you definitely want to be setting up at least 2 Frigibacks, 1 to 2 Bidoos, and a Radiant Greninja. You might go, but Charlie, what about having a Chien-Pao? I'll definitely get into that just in a little bit, but you don't want to have that 2-price liability, especially on your bench. Turn 2, you definitely want to get an Irida to try and get your Candy and Excalibur. This is a really, really good sort of combo, which we've noticed quite a lot happen. You always want to get into that. If you can Irida for other cards as well, and not just those 2, even better. Evolve into a Bibarel. You want to have that draw factor straight away. It's pure on the basis that they can like target that one, so if you can set up a second one, even better. And then you want to either attack with Radiant Greninja or Chien-Pao. You always want to bench your Chien-Pao turn 2. I never really want to have that, especially in the early game, pure on the basis that you don't want to give that 2-price liability. Say against the Miraidon, say against the Roy Moon, they can easily take these 2 prizes, so you don't want to give that any option as well. Turn 3, you definitely want to look up to setting up another Excalibur if you can, and always try and keep your attack streamlined. If you miss an attack, try and force away about how your opponent can get a 7-prize game without really getting any of your Pokemon as well. Also in turn 4, you want to protect your Excalibur and Bibarel. You want to keep the attacks coming and try and set up as many more Excaliburs and Bibarels if you can. It's kind of like a good sort of turn by turn sort of play, how you should really be thinking about going into the game. So that's definitely something which I really like about it. One of the strengths that Chien-Pao really has going into the rotation is it has very, very powerful attacks. Hailblade, amp you very much, and Conceal Cards, one of the strongest attacks right now in the game, which can deal infinite amount of damage from the likes of Hailblade, or take 2 prizes, or even knock out 2 Pokemon likes of Radiant Greninja's one. There is no ability lock, which means it's easy to set up. Shivery Chill and Conceal Cards are no longer locked off from Path to the Peak, which definitely makes it a lot more easier, a lot more streamlined, constantly keep up these attacks going and drawing into any cards you might need to have. It's very easy to keep the prize rate and attacking turn 2 now, I noticed. I know it kind of go with, well, you kind of like freed up the space. Like I mentioned before in a video a few weeks ago with Chien-Pao, all of a sudden those 4 spots of cross switch have now turned to 1. So that's 3 additional spots which can be opened up to really make the Chien-Pao a lot more consistent. Gain some really good supporting cards like the code breaking, like having the potentially additional Conceal and cancelling clone, or limiting down your Pokestops, because you don't need to have 4 of these ones to really help you in the prize trade that way. That's right, the Stadium War. And it also has an incredibly good Charizard matchup. Charizard is about a 20% to 25% meta deck constantly, week after week after week in the City League. So if you have a deck which has a really good matchup going into one, that's obviously going to be very, very strong. But as big weakness as Chien-Pao, there's a lot of thought process to get the correct sequencing. A lot of people don't realize it with Chien-Pao. There is a ton of sequencing that needs to go with this one. You need to think about, can you draw additional cards to try and get out potentially get the correct discarding effects you want to have? Can you afford to get rid of potentially a Pokemon card? Yes, I know you do play quite a few super rods, so you can like just afford to get rid of some of your own Pokemon, but can you afford to do that right now? There's so much mis-sequencing I've noticed with Chien-Pao, so hopefully in this video, especially when I talk about the matchups, you can really understand about how the sequencing can really help with it. That's definitely something to be learned about. When you're playing Chien-Pao, you want to learn exactly about, if I discard this one card, will this affect me in the late game? So say you superior energy away a superior energy retrieval, will that actually impact you in the late game? Do you need to streamline more attacking options, or can you afford to play like a Super Rod? And also, you can miss a turn to attack or Backscalibur setup. It is still Chien-Pao. It can definitely still struggle at certain times as well, and also has a very poor control matchup. I'll definitely get back to that in just a little bit. We do play some text which could potentially help with this one, but yeah. And we're now a format where they play Eerie, these control archetypes, so we can, and TM Devo. So they can kind of like TM Devo the likes of your Backscalibur, chuck in your hand, they could Eerie turn beforehand, get rid of some red candies. Definitely something to be struggled with as well. Have a really bad control matchup, and you definitely could be a little bit of a fish out of water if you kind of like miss out that turn to attack or Backscalibur. So let's look exactly about the list right now. The list which I've been playing quite a lot recently, and having great success in my testing, having about a 70% win rate with this exact list. So why do I play certain counts? Well, we play 2 Chien-Paos. We don't really play that many more because they don't really need that many more. Only having 2 of each one works really well. We play Heavy Ball in case we prize it, but also we play a ton of search cards like Ultra Ball, Nest Ball, Super Rod to shuffle them back in, as well as Iridos to try and streamline your Chien-Paos. They're not your streamlined attacking more. A 3-2 line of Excalibur is definitely the best way to play this one. It's definitely the most common way how we've been seeing success right now, so it's also in the likes in Japan as well. You're never going to need more than 2 Excalibur setup. You want to have a high count of Fidgety in case one gets knocked out in the early game, similar to the likes of playing a 2-2 line of Bibarel. Bibarel is definitely the best sort of answer to help you get that, to help you get the cards you might need to draw into factor. Because as the miniatures here, there is not that many draw things outside of likes of Radiant Greninja and Bibarel, as well as also Pokestop. And there's a bit of a heavy cost. Pokestop, you might potentially mill quite free and very important cards. Radiant Greninja, you have to discard a water and energy card. But also Bibarel, you only can draw until you have 5. So having 2V set up, as well as also play a ton of discarding effect, you can always constantly refresh your hand. Also a Manaphy. Manaphy as well, I think is a much more stronger inclusion. If we're seeing the high counts of Lost Zone box doing pretty well, Lost Tina, as we talked about this week, is definitely on the rise. And Chien-Pao, you want to help you in the mirror match as much as possible. I think Chien-Pao is definitely a much stronger position than it's ever been. So helping in the mirror match with Manaphy is definitely the best way for it. Now let's go to the other 2 attacking options, Iron Hands and Radiant Greninja. As I mentioned these before, they're incredibly powerful. Radiant Greninja is one of the strongest things. If you can streamline 2 Moonlight Shurikens turn after turn, it's one of the strongest attacks right there in the game. I always think it's much stronger than likes of Kyogre, which I'm going to mention in a little bit. And Iron Hands as well. Having that amp you very much can constantly be found out very easily. We play Earthen Vessel and 1 Lightning Energy, so you can constantly streamline this one. You can search for the likes of Irida, Pokestop gets to the likes of the Earthen Vessel, gets to the Lightning Energy. You can even discard it early from an Ultra Ball or conceal cards and get it back from a superior energy retrieval in the late game. We only play 2 gusting effects, a prime catcher and a counter catcher. Yes, I know the counter catcher is a little bit conditional, but I've never noticed that this is an issue. We've seen that this is the best way to kind of play Chien-Pao. A lot of decks don't really play likes of Boss's Orders because you can get the counter catcher from an Irida or Pokestop. I really like that in that inclusion. Lost Vacuum is definitely going to see a lot more of an inclusion. We're seeing that from even the Turbo Iron Hands deck, the heavy baton. We've seen the likes of Hero's Cape. We've seen the likes of Energy Booster Capture and like the Ancient and Future. We've seen a ton of really good tool cards. So having that, getting rid of that is really, really strong. Plus, in the mirror match, you can get rid of a Pokestop and force your opponent to either try and play their own one, or in fact, go for a whole game with no Pokestop included. 2 cancelling clone is definitely a bit of a change from what I've been kind of playing a lot of it. A lot of people are playing the 1, but I generally think 2 is definitely a must. If you can get 2 Radiant Greninja plays, incredible. You can also play it in a Snorlax deck and limit from the likes of like stop them from a Mimikyu, stop them from a Blockclax as well, stop them from heck even a Fluttermane to like, so you can use your abilities of your Chien-Pao or Radiant Greninja or Excalibur. There are so many ways around this one, which is why I absolutely love having 2 of these in the archetype. 2 Super Rod and 4 Superior Energy Retrieval, I think is a really good recovery card. Because Super Rod, you are playing very small lines of Chien-Pao and Baxcalibur, try and shuffle them back in is definitely a must. You can get the water energies you require, so you can combo it back in from the likes of a Shivery Chill. There's also having the likes of Superior Energy Retrieval, try and get those 4 energies you require completely. Don't forget, you cannot retrieve an energy card that you discard from using Superior Energy Retrieval. Always remember that as well. Definitely something which can kind of catch new players off. So only ever, if you can, try not to discard an energy card from a Superior Energy Retrieval so you can never get caught out, but always keep that in mind. We do place 3 copies of Rare Candy. We're never going to really need more of this one, but always kind of be a bit more careful. If you're against the likes of a Charizard or even like Control Archetype, which potentially could play the likes of a the TM Devolution, really keep in mind about when you should be evolving your Baxcaliburs. You don't want to kind of like get 2 Baxcaliburs early. Also, they could play an Eerie, then also they play the likes of the TM Devo. You've now got no Baxcaliburs for the rest of the game, and you've instantly lost that game. So definitely be careful about when you are going to be evolving, especially going to this format, because if Charizard and Baxcalibur are one of the best evolving Pokemon right now, there's going to be a lot of Eerie's and a lot of TM Devos. Our item cards of search is going to be 3 copies of Buddy Buddy Puffin, 4 Nestballs, and 4 Ultra Ball. These are really good inclusions. You want to have these exactly big sort of searching outs as possible. Buddy Buddy Puffin, you don't want to max out onto 4 because, yes, you in theory could, but Nestball's really good in the late game because it gets you that Radiant Greninja, it gets you the Iron Hands, it gets you the Chien-Pao, while Buddy Buddy Puffin still gets you all of your single price Pokemon, especially in the early game. Whereas Ultra Ball as well, it's really good to have that searching card as well. Gain that Baxcalibur, you want to have as many outs as possible. A 2-4 split for our supporters. I've told you how powerful code breaking the ciphering is. It's just super, super powerful. Gain any 2 cards you want to have, especially with the huge draw factor this deck has to offer, as well as 4 Iridas. Gain any of the cards you might potentially need. 3 Pokestops. You don't need 4. You could even argue going down to 2 if you want to cut some space as well. And also 8-1 for our energy split. This is my Chien-Pao list. It's a golden list, I've been told. It's a very, very powerful archetype and one I've had a ton of success with. And I really hope that replicates into it while I talk to you about the matchups. So, can I look at this one? What are some cards I kind of missed the cut? Well, we have the likes of Origin Form Palkia. We've seen this have pop in and out in the format, but it's also kind of like seen pretty good success over in Japan. It's a very good strong secondary attacker. Substrates well if both people have a full bench, 260 damage. That's pretty good because it can only go back to Gholdengo, help you in that matchup. This also has a really good Star Portal ability, which lets you save you from using your SER. Try and attach those 3 water energies. You can chuck them on a Gradient Greninja, it's all done straight to go. Chuck them on a Chien-Pao, doing 180 damage now. It's just a very, very powerful sort of card option. But it does take up a bench space and takes 2 turns to set up. With Chien-Pao, sometimes you want to get that fast, aggressive play. If we're seeing a huge increase of Iron Hands, especially the Turbo build, do we really want to have a liability on the bench that can also be a 3-prize Pokemon, and also they can just easily kind of like steamroll all of us? They can go Iron Hands KO a Frigibax, Miraidon to KO a Frigibax, and Iron Hands KO a Palkia. All of a sudden, that's their 3 knockouts they require, and all of a sudden, we can't really respond to that. So that's definitely something to always think about, especially going into this format. Will this actually be hindering my matchup? Yes, it's a really good secondary attacker. Yes, it's a really good ability, but if I'm worried about certain archetypes, especially in the mirror match, is it actually worth it? Iron Bundle is a card which I'm so tempted to be my 60th card, like switching out Conceal cards for an Iron Bundle. That's been some of my testing one. It's absolutely a great Tusk and goes around Vulpix. You might go, why does it go around Vulpix? Well, it can use a Hyper Blower ability, which makes you pretty much on the bench. You may discard it and switch your opponent's active Pokemon from their bench. It helps you in the Vulpix, because Vulpix absolutely shuts down this archetype. You can no longer attack into it because all your Pokemon which attack except Iron Hands have abilities. It's Iridas searchable, so it's like a gusting effect. Say, for example, we can even think about it from the likes of multiple, say, for example, Lugia decks. They're attacking with Chino, but they've got loads of evolved Pokemon, 2-prize Pokemon on the bench, even likes of the Iron Hands when they attack into Miraidon. You can use Iron Bundle, dust out the effect, and also you're now getting a 2-prize Pokemon KO instead of a single prize Pokemon. But your opponent does get the switch, and sometimes it can hinder you. You have to make sure it's on the bench. So you can't really have it in the actual spot and use this ability. But it does have a decent attack as well. It has seen some success. Definitely something I've been really considering my testing option, because I think it's a really good sort of gusting effect around having that 3rd option, which is really strong. Kyogre is another card which has seen a ton of success as well. It's a really good single price attacking option and good snipe as well. The dramatic red wave doing 180 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon. Again, it helps you into the Vulpix matchup. Having a Pokemon which can attack which doesn't have an ability is super, super strong. But it is very expensive. 4 energies, 3 retreat cards, that is a lot, and obviously weak to lightning. That's a pretty expensive sort of cost to this one, and sometimes Radiant Greninja is better. You might go, but Charlie, Dramatic Wave can KO a Luminion, it can KO a Squawkabilly, it can KO Baxcalibur, can help in a mirror match, so we can take some 2-or-1 prices that way. Yes, but Radiant Greninja can take 2 Pokemon off the field, which I sometimes think is much stronger than just taking 2 prizes, taking 2 fields, 2 threats on it. For example, 2 Charmanders is sometimes stronger than getting rid of 1 Luminion, which potentially wouldn't really hinder your board state at all. Luminion V, just as the Badger I said, is actually very, very good still in the deck. Gets you the Irida turn 2. But it also takes up a bench space. Obviously, that Luminous Sign is such a good ability by getting any of your supporter cards from your deck and putting them into your hand. I've definitely tested with Luminion. I really like Luminion, but right now in the format where Iron Hands has played a lot of Chien-Pao and the Turbo build and having a lot of talking about this one, I think it's definitely something to be really kind of consider about if it's something you want to have in the archetype. And you have no way to remove it, no collapsed stadium, so it could be on the board for quite a long time. Pidgeot EX has seen also quite a bit of resurgence. It's an absolutely great pivot. That quick search ability gets you get any card you might potentially have, and also it has a free retreat. But again, it does take up a bench space, and it's not Iono proof. It doesn't help you like Bibarel does. Bibarel makes you draw until you have 5, while Pidgeot, if you get Iono to 1, you can only draw that 1 card and any card you might potentially have. You might not be able to get the superior end retrieval you require to get game. While Bibarel, you can search a little bit more, you can dig a little bit more deeper. I think this definitely is a good inclusion. We are seeing it see some success. I know this week I've been got a top 4 position, but definitely something which I think might see spell play. Pokegear is another card which is really good because it works with Pokestop. You get to search your deck for, look at the top 7 cards of your deck and find a supporter card. You can dig for your Iridas turn 1 or 2, depending on where you are. And also, like I said, works with Pokestop. It gets discarded. And also, you're now 10 cards deeper from after that initial discard to try and get out that Irida. As well as also talk about other supporters, which you have seen some play. Boss's Orders and Iono are some great inclusions. Right now, in the current format, we're seeing Iono as the other supporter of choice, having that good destructive capability and also a refresh of the hand. Iono isn't just good in the late game, trying to disrupt your opponent to get the one sort of card in the hand, but also really good in the early game, drawing to F6. It's a good sort of refresher so you can get into Irida as well. But it can be more from Pokestop. We aren't playing Power Pad. All of a sudden, they become dead, useless cards. I think these are some really good inclusions for your deck. All of these do have some merits. I want to give you some positive and negatives to all of these about why you should be playing certain archetypes, because I do believe that there are some higher counts like Pidgeot, as well as also Iron Bundle, which could see a lot more play and merit, as well as the likes of Iono. Now, I want to talk to you about the ideal board state going first. From my testing, this is how I really like to play it. Have a Frigibax or Chien-Pao in the active spot, depending on the matchup you're going with, and having 2 Frigibax, a Bidoof, and a Radiant Greninja on the bench. Now, you might go, Charlie, when should you be starting with Chien-Pao? You should only really be starting with Chien-Pao. Well, obviously, you have no sort of choice in this one. If you're going blind, always try and start with a single prize Pokemon, because you never know that they could easily respond to this one. Miraidon is still a threat, same thing with Roaring Moon, and the likes of Turbo Iron Hands. They can easily get some easy prize cards from you. So that's definitely something to be always considerate about. So you always want to have a single prize Pokemon. Yes, I know you can go, but they can just you can respond, if it's a Turbo Iron Hands, you can respond with another Chien-Pao, but they can just respond back and get a KO. Always something to be considerate about. So always have a single prize Pokemon. I always love to leave one bench space open. So you can also, say against Mirror Match, you can bench a Manaphy, or potentially a second Bidoof, or respond with an Iron Hands or a Chien-Pao. That's why I really like with the going first. If you're blind, I always say go with a single prize Pokemon. Sometimes you can't help something with Chien-Pao. If you can kind of limit that and kind of move it out from the access spot, or just be prepared, have a board state to respond to whatever could be, that's definitely something to be considered about as well. Again, you don't want to early bench a Manaphy, but having the 2 Bibarels is definitely something to be considered about. Especially if you're going second, again, having that single prize Pokemon in the access spot, having a Frigibax, having a Radiant Greninja. Sometimes Radiant Greninja is good there to soak up that attack. You may not want to sacrifice one of your Frigibax. You may want to put a Bidoof out there, but you want to have that sort of sponge Pokemon. Sometimes Greninja really is that. And again, having that sort of option as well, I always think having that Frigibax going second is just such a good one. You understand a little bit more about what the opponent has to offer, and again, having that space available to you. If you know you're against a Gholdengo deck, having that space to put down the Manaphy, having the bench put that down, especially in the mirror match, having a potential Chien-Pao, Radiant Greninja, having the Iron Hands as the response KO. I think having all of this spot is really, really ideal. You always want to have that spare space, purely on the basis that you want to constantly to streamline the attacking options. You want to have the response if they have the ready Greninja. You want to kind of like be as respectful as possible. So always having a spare space is always the best way for it. So now let's look at the matchups. So this is going to be probably everyone's favorite part. I'm going to give you this in-depth exactly how you should be playing every single one of these decks. As you can see here, there is a lot of favorable matchup ones. Definitely I'm going to start with the uneven ones. Having the likes of Alolan Vulpix, having that resurgence, getting that second place is a huge threat because you cannot go through Snow Mirage unless you play Iron Hands. Great Tusk, I definitely feel like it's more maybe in the evenly unfavored because on the basis that I've played against it quite a bit and I'm currently 50-50 against it right now. But having the discarding effect, it can get rid of your rare candies. With the Eries, it can get rid of so many cards and you draw for your deck very quickly. So you have to constantly streamline the attacking option. So as also block clacks as well. They can chuck a Bibarel out there and you can't really do anything. Erika's Invitation is a very much more unfavorable. As well as we look at the rest of the favorite ones here, a lot more evolving Pokemon or single prize low HP attacking options, and even ones are the much more higher HP ones. I think even the likes of the Iron Hands one, you do have a pretty good matchup going into this one, as well as also the likes of Lugia. So let's break down exactly how you should be playing certain matchups. Into Charizard, stuff that you really should be doing. You want to be prioritizing your setup before attacking. What do I mean by that? Well, they can only really initiate, you can't really initiate them dealing more damage until you take a single prize card. But sometimes you might go, I can't get Excalibur out right now, but I can set up multiple Fidget Baxes. I'm just going to leave it as it is. Sometimes this can be really good because it can unlock Counter Catcher for you. Because you can attack into Chien-Pao and they can only KO it if they have a maximum belt attached to it, or potentially one KO and a Vitality belt. Always try and go 2-2-2 or 1-3-2 for prizes. Never let it be a 7-prize game. That can absolutely swing them into a much more favorable one. But you want to try and get over in maybe 4 or 5 turns. So having that 2-2-2 or that 1-3-2 is such a good prize card. What can you get through prizes on? Well, you get through prizes definitely on the likes of a Lumineon, which they will be playing. Try and get that before they collapse Stadium away. And always have 2 Bibarels set up and a backup Excalibur. Because they are potentially going to be playing some of the TM Devos or potentially just loads of gusting effects because they play at least 3 bosses orders and like 2 counter catchers, you want to have as much setup as possible. They play heavy Ionos, so having the Bibarels will really, really help. And only K Charizard when you can. Do not two-shot it. Yes, you might be tempted to go, oh, I'll just do this here and then I can get an Ampy very much. Try your best never to do that one because they can in theory take 2 Chien-Pao KOs when you can take 4 prize cards that way, where you can go, oh, Chien-Pao followed by an Ampy very much, and take 3 prize cards that way. That might not be enough at all to keep you in the game. Stuff to definitely watch out for. Do not bench Chien-Pao and Iron Hands early. Like I mentioned before, most of their decks are playing likes of maximum belt, so they can deal 50 more damage, which is a magic 230 damage to KO the likes of Chien-Pao and Iron Hands. And sometimes just don't tunnel vision into Radiant Greninja plays. Because of that, sometimes you might go, okay, I'm just going to get this here, and then you might burn too many resources, and that can really cost you the game. The Evo build with the Bibarel can make it a little bit harder. Yes, they play the Bidoofs, which make sure that they can't be damaged on the bench, as well as also the likes of the Bibarel, which have higher HP. The Charmeleons, they might be playing the 100 HP ones, and sometimes they might not even play Manaphy. Sometimes having 2 100 HP Charmeleons and a Bibarel and Bidoofs, all of a sudden you can only get 1 prize card and not get that full factor about why Radiant Greninja is so strong. So that's definitely something to be considerate about. I think you have a really good Charizard matchup here, and just a few steps as well can really help you in that sort of matchup wise. Gholdengo is another very good evolving Pokemon, which definitely got a lot stronger in the post-rotation metagame. Try and always take out 2 Gimmicks from Radiant Greninja turn 2. Yes, they are still playing the Manaphy, so that's definitely something to always be considerate about, but they have a really good draw factor as well. That you always go into that one as well. Again, keep the 2-2 price rate and don't let them get ahead. If they kind of get ahead, the game is kind of pretty much over because they only need 3 inches to KO the likes of your Chien-Paos, but you need 5 to KO Palkia or Gholdengo, and Iron Hands is a great attacker. These are some things to really keep in mind when you're going against Gholdengo. They are playing in Pokestops, so always be mindful about when you're going to be playing it first, and do not bench Manaphy until you see a Palkia. This is a big misplay I've seen a lot of people do. People go, oh, okay, they play Gholdengo, I'm going to bench Manaphy here. But they can't get Greninja powered up until they've had at least 2 turns. So you need to get the Palkia and then go into Palkia V-Star, and then they can Energy Accelerate to Greninja. That's definitely something to be considerate about, because they always need to attach to Gholdengo to get the attack off. So don't really waste your bench space with a Manaphy. So it's something to always be mindful of as well. I think this is a very positive matchup still going into this one. And I do think that Iron Hands, like I mentioned, is really good. It gets the 3 prizes off the likes of a Lumineon or even the likes of a Palkia, but also that Greninja gets to become 2 prizes as well. Miraidon EX, I think, becomes a little bit more favorable one because you can aim for this Pokemon with the most energy. Now you might go, that seems a bit silly. Well, there's no Manaphy right now, and there are EXP, so lots of vacuum away an EXP and kind of focusing on getting a KO on the potential Miraidon with 3 energy or a Iron Hand with 4 and a heavy baton. That can really force them to really not really get some big energy acceleration because they only have electric generation, which yes is very strong, but what they worked really well from the likes of Raihan and the likes of the Flapping right now is makes them Miraidon much stronger by kind of removing that threat. It becomes a lot more of an easier matchup one, and always try and take the first KO or force a 7-prize game. They can obviously, they do play Iron Hands, so definitely something to bear in mind that they can go into that sort of play where they can KO a single prize Pokemon and initiate the prize trade much quicker. That can sometimes be a little bit of a losing factor, but there's no path to the peak, so you do have that bit of a better matchup that way. And a cheeky Iron Hands play, like I mentioned, can cost you the prize trade. And they also have Regieleki to boost their damage. So that's definitely something to consider about. They can have the likes of the Relic Camp, so we can use Regieleki's wall ability, so we can have effectively 400 HP and deal a huge amount of damage. So that's always something to be considerate about going into Miraidon. They might be going back to Regieleki because they want to be tanky and deal a huge amount of damage. And they can also use Iron Hands to take these big one-hit KOs as well. Always something to be considerate about. I don't think there's going to be much Miraidon, but definitely something to be at least know about how you should be going against it. Gardevoir, again, a deck which kind of became a lot worse going into post-rotation. Iron Hands is one of your best attacking options. Yes, they play a lot of single prize Pokemon, but they're going to be heavily damaged. So Iron Hands really works in this one. Bench Manaphy after turn 2 or 3 because of Screamtail. Screamtail can get these big one-hit KOs on Baxcalibur if it's when it attacks into it, because it can attack anywhere on your field. So kind of having a Manaphy set up after turn 2 or 3, this is just sometimes exactly what you need to have. You don't want Screamtail to absolutely reign supreme. Radiant Greninja to KO 2 Rocks or Colia turn 2 is definitely the must. I know that's kind of a lot of people realize that Chien-Pao has such a good Gardevoir matchup was because they could easily get the KOs from the likes of how good that Cassian clone play really is. I still think it's still that much stronger into Gardevoir. You aren't really going to be using Counter Catcher. You are going to be using Prime Catcher. If you can get that out turn 2, that's exactly how you should be playing this one. And only go for Gardevoir when you need it. You don't want to sacrifice a ton of your resources. If you can potentially go Greninja, Iron Hands, followed by Chien-Pao on a Gardevoir, that's an absolutely perfect match. You want to get 2 prizes for Iron Hands, 2 prizes for Greninja, then 2 prizes for Chien-Pao and the Gardevoir right at the end. Like I mentioned before, watch out for Screamtail. It can reach very, very high numbers. And Gardevoir X with Hero's Cape, you just get a KO. Having 410 HP, pretty much you think about having 6 energies, you pretty much, if 6 energies do 360 damage, you go 480 damage with 8 energies. So it's definitely something to be considered about. Yes, I know it's like a just KO, but sometimes having 7 energies you have to do to get a KO is a lot of a response. And they do play Hero's Cape. So again, something to always bear in mind. I doubt this deck will be very, very popular because you do have a really good matchup into this one. And it's lost so many good cards, but always good to know about how you should be beating a brand new deck, especially as it's changed. The Lost Zone Giratina has seen a ton of resurgence this past weekend. I definitely think it's something you should always be knowing how to play. Radiant Greninja and Iron Hands are your best attackers in the early game. Iron Hands can get additional prize cards, but also Radiant Greninja takes you that 2 prize cards. You may notice quite a bit of a trend here, and you might go, Charlie, is this very easy to set up? The answer is yes, and Chien-Pao always for Giratina. You don't want a 2-shot Giratina, you always want a 1-hit KO them. Bench Manaphy after turn 2. After your second turn, if they go first, bench on your first turn. If they go second, bench on your second turn. You always want to have double Bibberel set up. Why is that? Well, Sableye has some big shenanigans and they can KO Bibberel set up. So if you have a second one, you always want to have that set up. You always want to draw into this one because you want to keep an eye on their hand side, because sometimes they might have a huge 15-card hand and go Roxanne you or Iona you, and all of a sudden they can KO likes of 1 or even 2 Bibberels if they've been very, very careful about their Sableye placements. All of a sudden, you're now dead out the water. And not having a backup Baxcalibur will punish you. They have Shred on the Giratina V, which can 1-hit KO Baxcalibur. And definitely be careful about it, because they will be playing high counts of Boss's Orders and high counts of the likes of Counter Catcher. So always be mindful about Baxcalibur. Having a few set up is really strong. They aren't going to be playing TM Devo. Yes, I know the Frigies can easily be KO from Sableye, so you always want to try and evolve up to them as quick as possible. Never give them any of these free prize Pokemon as much as you can. And going back to Lost Zone deck, it's a little bit similar as well. Radiant Greninja and Iron Hands early are really good secondary attacking options. You want to go through those Comfy, Sableye, Manaphy's, anything you can possibly do, it's just so good. Have 2 Excaliburs and 2 Bibarel set up, no 60 HP basics. You do not want to give them 2 prize options from the likes of Sableye. Yes, I know they can already KO Bibarel because it has 120. You don't want to give them any option to try force you to lose the game. As well as also only use Chien-Pao to KO their 2 prize Pokemon. Yes, I know I've been saying that quite a lot. Sorry about that. But you don't have any of these liabilities. They can use Roy Moon to KO you. They can set up some damage so it can amp you very much to get 3 prizes to get the end of the game. And if you are worried about the matchup, go for the 70 HP Fidgetbacks. Maybe the 70 HP BDFs as well could really help. Yes, I know they have a higher retreat cost, but this might be the best way to kind of help you really kind of streamline into that matchup one. And remember, they have counter catcher Iron Hands. Be careful when you go ahead, because a lot of the archetypes are being playing Iron Hands and playing the counter catcher, so you don't really want to give them any sort of option at all for them to easily all of a sudden get easy Iron Hands set up, take some 2 prizes that way, and all of a sudden. And Cheeky Roxanne, you're out of the water. Definitely something to be always consider about going into this matchup. Same for Lugia. Lugia, I actually think, is a pretty good matchup. You can use Iron Hands to KO Cinccino, as well as also KOing likes of Luminion and Lugia V to try and get those 3 prize cards that way. If you do, go for an Archeops early. I've done this testing before, and trying to carry at least 1 Archeops whilst they get set up can really hinder their setup at all. Only having 1 energy acceleration can be a little bit tricky. Heck, even using Iron Hands to take 2 prize cards that way can make sure it's not going to be a threat in the late game. Use your single prize attacking option. Greninja can KO 2 Minchinos, but they can't KO Cinccino because that's 110 HP, and only bench Chien-Pao when you need it, exactly like the old Lugia matchup. If you start Chien-Pao, just hopefully they don't get another attack. It can be like classic Lugia where it doesn't really get any setup, because Lugia sometimes can be a little bit more like a theme deck and not get the setup it requires. And Cinccino can really rack up that damage very quickly if left unchecked. Say, for example, you miss some sort of KO, or you miss some sort of setup, and they can power energy accelerate to Cinccino's. That is a very, very poor sort of matchup wide, and it's definitely a game which you instantly will try and scoop. And they will force a 7 prize game. They can try and have the likes of streamlining lots of single prize Pokemon like Cinccino. Lugia can 1-hit KO your Chien-Pao if they have everything attached to this one. So always try and think about that. They can also, some decks have been playing Radiant Charizard as a Radiant of choice with 1 copy of Lumineous Energy. So again, stuff to always be considered about how Lugia is really going to be adapting into this new format. I think it's very powerful. Iron Hands, again, is a much more stronger attack, and I do think it's much more easier to get out Iron Hands in this new format. Speaking of Iron Hands, Turbo Iron Hands, it's a matchup right now which I've done a little bit of testing with, and it's definitely surprised me of how easy it is to try and streamline your attacking option. Do not leave a single prize Pokemon at the end of your first turn. What I mean by that is sometimes it is actually worth to start with a Chien-Pao. Yes, they could potentially get 3 prize cards that way, but you don't want to give them anything to try and guarantee the 2 prize cards, force them into the 2 prize race, and all of a sudden you've now lost the game because they've got such a momentum. Respond to Iron Hands quickly. Just focus your attacks on them. They are your main attacking option as well. Lost Vacuum away their Baton. If you can Lost Vacuum a Baton plus a KO, all of a sudden you've removed 3 energies from play. They might have to send out Miraidon, which you can respond with an Iron Hand to get 2 prize cards that way. So you can actually have a decent more matchup into this one. But they can energy accelerate very, very quickly. And also they play 4 gusting effects. Countercatcher, Boss. From the one that got top 16 at Champions League, it played 4 copies of Countercatcher. But now I'm noticing that definitely in my testing as well, going down to 2 Countercatcher and 2 Bosses, it actually is a lot more sensible. This deck will see a bit of play. I could see this probably be a 5% meta deck. We've seen a big increase of Iron Hands being bought very, very recently. People are definitely preparing for the Iron Hands onslaught that might be EUIC. But I don't think it is an auto loss. I think it is a little bit more winnable than people think. They need a lot to get the setup. They need to have 3 energies, plus a gift energy, plus a baton to just try and keep up in the price trade constantly. So if you can nullify one of those things, you're in a very good position for that matchup. Roy Moon EX is still doing pretty well. I think it did pretty okay this past weekend as well. And try and force them to take a single prize Pokemon is really, really good. Yes, they could potentially use a Morpeko, but you have Iron Hands to respond to that one. Only KO Roy Moon or Iron Hands can KO a Greninja. Why do I say that? Because you don't want to KO any of a single prize Pokemon, unless you have to with likes of Iron Hands. Heck, you can even KO the likes of a Roy Moon from an Iron Hands after using Frenzy Gouging to take 3 prize cards. That's never going to happen, but in theory that could actually see some sort of play here. And don't play your stadiums early. You do not want to give them any sort of pressure at all by like going, okay, I'm just going to play my stadium right now and try and get the KO that way. Try and get your setup that way. Do not do that because it helps you feed into their Calamity Storm. Starting Chien-Pao and not be able to move it is definitely how you can lose this matchup. Yes, they have lost from the likes. They're a little bit slower, but they're still explosive. They've lost the likes of Galarian Moltres V, which is one of the strongest versions of how to play Roy Moon. But starting Chien-Pao could still be an auto loss sometimes, and trying to keep up that price rate is definitely something which you need to constantly do. And Roy Moon can definitely keep you a bit more dead out of the water. Speaking of another Roy Moon, Ancient Box. I actually think this deck has some merit to this one. One of the ways I think is the best way to kind of go around this matchup is Greninja Snipe, then turn it into 2 Iron Hands attacks. This is the best way to try and even out the price trade. Because you do have quite a lot of HP, sometimes you need 3, even 4 energies to get a KO if it has the Ancient Booster Energy Capsule attached to your the opponent's Roy Moon. Having 200 HP, it's a little bit more difficult to kind of get the KO. They can build up their damage much quicker because you don't have that much HP, especially going into this or matchup one. So it's definitely something to be a bit more careful that Vengeful Feathers can get these big one-hit KOs very, very easily. And they can outrace you because they are pure single prize deck. They might play a Roy Moon EX, which you can in theory skew out the price rate that way to try and go through a Roy Moon EX to try and get a KO that way. But you want to try and if you can make these single price Pokemon a 2 price liabilities from the likes of Iron Hands, definitely that's the best way to go for this one. And protect your backs, as they will probably focus on the attacking that one. They want to be stopping you completely out of this one as well. So gain those KOs, try and like have multiple Baxcalibur set up is going to be the best way forwards and constantly streamline them because they're going to be using Vengeful Feathers a lot in those ones because they are going to be playing at least 2 or 3 counter catchers because their main supporters will be the ancient ones. And the last one I want to really look into this one is Giratina Arceus. I think this deck is pretty good, but you definitely want to set up 2 Baxcaliburs and 2 Bibberells. Why? Because they play lots of Gusting, lots of Destructive cards, and they're going to be Ionoing you and bossing up or counter-catching up those Baxcaliburs, so you're trying to be as dead as possible. Try and focus your KOs on Arceus early, followed by Giratina. Why do you want to focus on Arceus? Because you don't want to give them that lost impact. You don't want to set up so they can constantly be streamlining those attacks again and again and again. You want to keep your board with only 1 Chien-Pao in play, but if you don't have any active after going second, because they can use Arceus, they can chuck a Maxim Belt onto this one. Also, Trinity Nova can get a KO on a Chien-Pao. You don't want to have that many 2-price Pokemon around the field, because you don't want to give them any chance to really energy accelerate. They want to initiate the prize trade. You always want to try and go with like they force to take a single prize Pokemon and they can go 2-2-2. But if they start the prize trade, it can be very difficult to respond. Yes, they don't play as many destructive cards as possible, but they do play Eerie. So please keep in mind of that when you have Candy in hand. You don't want to go, okay, I've got my Candy in hand, I've got my Superior Energy Retrieval, so I've got the response for late term. Sometimes it's worth it in this matchup to try and go with as streamlined as possible. You want to burn through your resources because you don't want to give that well-timed Eerie because they probably play 2 and maybe even a Power Pad as well to get rid of your where I can is get rid of your big ways to do huge amount of damage capability. That's definitely something to be considerate about. So always trying to get Energy Accelerate or Evolve Burst Sync. Will this actually hinder me? Sometimes the answer might be yes, but sometimes you just have to go for it. You have to have that board presence because this deck here can run through this one. There's no path to peak, but Eerie is just as deadly. So now I want to talk to you about its bad matchups. Arceus Vulpix. Is this actually going to be a threat? Well, it did get second place at the Champions League. Over 2,600 players were there. Iron Hands, weirdly, is your best attacking option. And you very much 2-hit KOs Vulpix. So you can get 3 prizes of Vulpix, which is really, really good. But sometimes you want to just target down the lone Arceus or Radiant Greninja before they leave the set. What do I mean by that? Well, that they play a lot of Breath of Tourism and Scenario. They also play the likes of Sharon's Care. So we have these gutting effects that bring them up to the hand and have an absolutely lone Vulpix, which can sometimes cost you the game completely. So try and target that as the best as possible. Or if you can't do that, Prime Catcher, Counter Catcher out the Vulpix. If you go behind in prizes, which in theory is weirdly probably the best thing to do in this matchup, just do a Counter Catcher followed by a Prime Catcher on the Vulpix and get a big KO on that sort of factor. I think that's just the best way to go around this one, or try and streamline likes of Iron Hands. They 2-shot you, or you 2-shot them. If you can respond them with more of if they have a Super Rod plus the likes of a a superior entry in your hand to try and get it back out, you have a good spot. But again, be careful because Eerie can remove that card exactly from this one. Arceus is going to be best friend is now Eerie because it is such a strong supporter card which can really put you dead in the water. And you have to try and recycle your iron hands to keep in the game. And sometimes that can just be game losing and some you just can't get that set up as much as you can. Do I see this deck being meta relevant? Potentially. If you can test against it, absolutely, but definitely something to be kept a little bit on your radar. Another one you should definitely keep on your radar is Great Tusk. This is a deck which has seen quite a lot of success right now in Japan, got top 16, gets multiple wins, and I kind of thought it was like one of the best rogue decks until I've kind of talked about it. People say, no, Charlie, this is a meta-relevant archetype. Again, like I mentioned before, the Ancient Box, the best way to potentially do this one is a Greninja Snipe followed by an Iron Hands to try and win out the price rate that way. Make them 2-price Pokemon. Could, in theory, skew out the price rate just a little bit, but sometimes Chien-Pao is a great attacker, but it's incredibly costly. When I've been testing against it, the more I've attacked more with Chien-Pao, I want to be using the Greninja Snipe followed by Iron Hands, but sometimes you just have to go with Chien-Pao because it's the only resource you have available to this one. You also got to be careful because Great Tusk can one-hit KO Iron Hands, Excalibur, and Greninja because it can attack with that Giant Fangs attack to do 160 damage. Yes, you've heard that correctly. Great Tusk is actually an attacker as well because you have Sada and you can easily energy accelerate it. It's quickly, potentially even turn 3, which is quite scary to think about. Be careful because how fast you set up. They can mill some of your very, very key cards. You don't want to like draw through everything, but you kind of do it at the same time. You want to have that setup. You need Excalibur. You need 4 to even 5 energies to KO a Great Tusk. So that's definitely something to always be considered about. You want to have a setup, but sometimes you just can't get that one because they can mill you before you can get any setup at all. Use your Super Rod when you can because they can Eerie away all of those recovery cards. We saw that at get the top 16 place. I've seen Eerie pop up a lot more in Great Tusk or decks as well. So definitely something to be a little bit more careful about. And the last control archetype, Snorlax Stall, is you still have a pretty bad matchup. You want to fill your bench up with actual Pokemon that you can attack with. High counts of Chien-Pao, Excalibur, Iron Hands, because you don't want to give them any option to Erica's Invitation U or Mantike or any sort of ways to try and get any opposing Pokemon you definitely do not want to have into this one. Try and get a KO or attack every single turn. If you can try and like streamline some attacks and again amp you very much into first one to make them a 2-price Pokemon, it's really, really powerful. Canceling Clone also cancels out their ability. So that's definitely something to consider about. You can stop their blockability. So you have them, you started with Bidoof, so you have a bit right in play. They have it in the active spot. You can't move it out because you're trying to attack into this one, but it keeps on recovering it from like a Penny. Well, Canceling Clone just removes this ability. You can also now move into other Pokemon and start streamlining these big attacks, which is really, really powerful. Like I mentioned, having Manaphy in hand or having an open space is a very, very bad matchup because Manaphy can do 20 damage and that's not exactly going to be winnable for you. So you always want to try and like scoop that one where as early as possible. Eerie can get rid of your gusting cards, can get rid of your counter catcher, where you're not really going to need, but also your prime catcher, which is definitely something which you should always be mindful about. Like I said, having Beberu is a really good draw card, but a nightmare to be stuck in the active spot. So those are exactly my thoughts and feelings about how you should be going into every single matchup. I hope this has been definitely very helpful because I think this deck is so good. But how does it actually phase in the mirror match? So, always bench 3 Figibaxes on your first turn. Because I played the mirror match, and the idea for you want to go with Greninja KO 2 Figibax turn 2. Streamline those attacks, and sometimes your opponent just can't keep up with it. You can keep up that pressure, and that's exactly how you lose the race. Always keep a 2-2-2 prize race. Try and not really go with like, oh, I just take a 1-prize Pokemon here, because there aren't really any ways to get a 3-prize KO. So that's always something to be bearing in mind as well. Greninja, like I mentioned, is key for the winning in the mirror match and setting up 2 Bibarels. You want to have that draw factor. You want to draw into as much as you can. Because if you can't, well, you're definitely a little bit more, like you can't really get your setup. You can't really draw into any of your key cards. So that's exactly why I think having 2 Bibarels is really good. Things to watch out for. Only bench Manaphy after on your second turn, or if you're going first, the end of turn 1. Why is that? Like I mentioned before, you want to kind of like have the Manaphy set up, but you don't want to give him any sort of pressure. You want them to work to KO those 2 Figibaxes. You don't want to bench Chien-Pao because they can easily respond it very, very early on. And be careful not to be Iron Hands twice in a game. That can happen because they can streamline it. They play lots of ball searching cards. They have lots of superior energy retrievals, lots of super rods as well. So I think the mirror match, I think if you're a really competent player with Chien-Pao, and if you follow this guide to understand how every sort of card works, I think you'll be in a really good sort of situation. You want to target the Frigibax, you want to keep that 2/2 prize trade, and Greninja is an absolute key attacking option. But do not be Iron Hands twice, because that can absolutely cost you the game. So let's have a final look at the deck list as well. The list as well, so you're really comfortable with the archetype. We understand exactly how each of these cards work and how they work in every single of these matchups as well. We know how Prime Catch is one of the best ace specs because it's such a good gusting effect and works really well for the likes of Pokestop and Iridium. We know how the new Code-Breaking Decipherer is a really good inclusion because it works from the likes of Bibarel, Greninja as Pokestop, but there's also Buddy Puffin. It is a much stronger Battle VIP pass because it works in the mid to late game, which is unlike Battle VIP pass, it's not a dead card in the late archetype. I think 2 Cancelling Clones works really, really well right now, but if you like any of those tech inclusions, removing that Cancelling Clone for one of those ones is a really good one to have. I'm currently testing a little bit more with the Iron Bundle because I really want to understand is it actually going to be a best inclusion, because right now that's my tech card of choice. So I really hope you have enjoyed this breakdown, exactly how this archetype works. I hope you guys have enjoyed this little bit of a rambling as well. One thing you always got to think about before you make an action. That's a big takeaway I think you should have with Chien-Pao. There is a lot of thought process back to constantly streamlining your attacking options, making sure you discard the correct amount of cards when you play the Super Rod, when you play Superior Engine Retrieval. So that's always a really good one to have. And always try and go 2/2 or 1/3/2. Never do a 7 prize matchup because that can sometimes lose you the entire game. And most importantly with this deck, have fun. It's a lot of fun. This deck is pretty much going to be the deck I'm going to be playing at EUIC, so if you play against me, I hope you have a lot of fun as well. I think this is one of the strongest decks right now. It's the best Chien-Pao has ever been positioned because it has such a good match against the multiple sort of field, and the new cards really unlocked it to be a little bit less of a clunky mess that we know it to be. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this breakdown. If you have, please make sure to like and subscribe. Next week, I'm going to talk to you about my top picks of the archetypes as well, going into the temporal forces, plus also EUIC. So my name is Charlie TCG. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As I lose my voice, bye for now.